Well, hello. Welcome again, Fernando. We spoke last week about several issues, but now a bridge has been raised and a lot of water has gone under it. But still, the vision is not clear. What is going on? This is crazy. Let me start with my point of view. So I will give you the chance to elaborate on this question because it has came many times. The startup, the inauguration speech from the Dr. Al-Hajraf was clear, and it said they will refer to the three basic references, which are the dialogue and the Gulf Initiative and 2216. That was like astonishing to me. I said, great, now we're on the right track. But then comes the planning of these meetings and discussions, and nothing is building towards this. What the Secretary General had said is the plan from what they want. They want to implement 2216 and to go back. What happened? Did they just have that as like an advertisement, and the actual meetings have nothing to do with them? How do you see that, Fernando?
Good evening, Ustad. Thank you very much. Ramadan Kareem. Happy Ramadan. Hopefully everyone is enjoying this. Everyone is enjoying the start of Ramadan with their family. Once again, thank you very much for the invitation, for organizing these little talks, and for the issues that you're bringing up. Yes, I think I just wrote an article that was published where I said that a lot of this was a PR campaign by Saudi Arabia to improve its image, to polish its image, to deflect criticism. As we enter the 8th year of the civil war, we do need to keep that in mind, that this is a Yemeni war. This is not a war of invasion, an external war. This started as a war between Yemeni parties, and it continues. Each side apparently has its patron, but nonetheless, this is a Yemeni war. And yes, there's a lot to consider when we look at the last 5 days leading within the process of this Yemeni dialogue in Riyadh, which is technically being hosted by the Gulf Cooperation Council at GCC in Riyadh, which is the headquarters. So first, to your point regarding the opening speech, again, let's keep in mind when the opening speech was, when it took place, and what was going on around at that time. You're correct that the GCC has to stick to the three documents that you mentioned, the GCC initiative of November 2011, which is basically the agreement from Ali Abdullah Saleh and the joint meeting parties at Mushtarak, agreeing to transition from Saleh to Vice President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi until the elections of February 2012, right? This is the beginning of the transition. This has all the transition milestones that need to be achieved. The NDC being the second. The first was the election of Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi, uncontested. And then the second was the start of the National Dialogue Conference, the NDC, which started in March 2013, March 2013. Remember, President Hadi presided over the NDC with a handful of vice presidents, including Yassin Oman and the late Abdul Karim al-Lidiyani, the former prime minister. And the Secretary General was Dr. Ahmed bin Mubarak, who is today Yemen's foreign minister. This concluded in January 2014 with the outcomes, a list of outcomes, including the now infamous proposal for a 6 federal region system. One of the main issues was that even though there was a committee to discuss the southern issue, there was no major outcome. There was no major mandate within the NDC to deal with the southern issue. And then lastly, Resolution 2216 from 2015. Let's go back again to our conversation last week where we sort of put the timeline when the Houthis take over Amran in July 2014. They start the protest against the lifting of subsidies on August 1st, 2014. And then they enter Sana'a on the 21st, 22nd of September 2014. That night, we had the signing of the Peace and Partnership Agreement, which we'll come back to because you, on your tweets, you did mention the number of agreements that the Houthis have signed and, violated in the process. Later on, in November and December, we had the process through the United Nations Security Council, where we begin to see the Chapter 7 being implemented regarding Yemen. Yemen is put under Chapter 7, which is collective security. Everyone, the UN now oversees the conflict, not just the UN envoy's office. We have Abdul Malik al-Houthi, Ahmed, Abdullah Saleh being sanctioned. And we have Resolution 2216, which again places Yemen under Chapter 7, but then brings up an arms embargo against the Houthis and outlines the restrictions to Hodeidah port and Sana'a airports. So this is important to mention because when the GCC Secretary General made his announcement, the Houthis had already rejected participating in the dialogue. The Houthis had already rejected a Ramadan ceasefire proposed by Saudi Arabia as leader of the coalition to restore legitimacy in Yemen. But the Houthis had launched a strike on Jeddah, on Aramco facilities in Jeddah the Saturday before. And on Sunday, they declared a unilateral 3-day, quote unquote, ceasefire. But this was only about cross-border strikes, meaning the Houthis, for 3 days, the Houthis would not strike Abu Dhabi or any territory from Saudi Arabia. That expired. Again, the UN envoy was at the opening ceremony in Riyadh. Hans Grundenberg gave a speech along with the US special envoy to the Yemeni conflict, gave a speech that day. And they did mention Resolution 2216 because it is what condemns the Houthi coup of September 2014, right? You can't speak of the conflict without mentioning Resolution 2216. Now, this is the main issue with the Houthis and why they continue to reject any peace talks or reject any ceasefires. Because on the day of the opening ceremony, on the 29th, on the 30th, the 31st, and the 1st of April, Houthis launched a campaign online saying that Supreme Political Council President Mahdi al-Mashad, then Houthi spokesman Mohammed Abdul Salam in Muscat, they tweeted and they gave their statement saying that they could not accept any ceasefire proposed by Riyadh until the restrictions on Hodeidah port and Sana'a International Airport were lifted. Those are their preconditions. Even though the UN Special Envoy asked for a ceasefire without preconditions from the Saudis, from the GOI, the government of Yemen, or the Houthis. But the Houthis nonetheless used this in order to reject the ceasefire initially. It appears that Saudi Arabia and the government of Yemen agreed not to lift the restrictions per se on Sana'a Airport or Hodeidah port, but to release the fuel ships that had already been inspected by the coalition and UNVIM, which is the UN mechanism stationed in Djibouti that inspects every ship that goes into Hodeidah. So then Ahmed bin Mubarak, the foreign minister, made a statement.
Can I interrupt you here, Fernando? I mean, this is really great. You've lined it out perfectly to this point, but remains the big questions that we overcrossing all the time. We have to get out of these little details because the suffering has gone long enough. And no doubt in any Yemeni's mind that Saudi Arabia, being like the third or the fourth strongest air force on the planet, and with the capabilities they have, they cannot defeat Houthis. I mean, this is not issue against Houthi alone. There is backup for Houthi that is prolonging his life. And we know, and Yemenis know, that the United Nations role was detrimental for the Houthis to remain until now.
Sure.
I will get you the second part of the question, which is you indicated that because the first proposal by the Mr. Grundberg was 3 days truce or ceasefire, but then who's going to benefit from a 2 months ceasefire? Let's look at the elements, the people on the ground, the people that count, that will benefit from these 2 months. Houthis have never been, for the last 2 years, being attacked in their positions. It's Houthis who is attacking every other element, whether it's the official government or in every direction. Houthi is attacking, and he is not being attacked. So the 2 months period, what is it going to do? Is he going to change? I mean, is he capable of changing? Or is this 2 months grace period will just allow him to gather more weapons, structure his forces, and be more aggressive? So where are we from reaching what the Mr. Al-Hajraf indicated in his speech? And I want to remind you, 2216 includes a lot more than only the punishments and the Houthi. It includes that the Houthi is disarmed, and he must surrender all the government facilities that he's overtaken. That is in 2216.
Right. No, I mean, this is the big catch, and this is the big reason why there's so much criticism of the UN envoy over and over. It's not just the current envoy, but it was Martin Griffith, it was Ismail Sheikh, and it was Bin Omar. There is no transparency, and you're absolutely right. We are hearing all of this conversation, all of these statements that are very short, very unclear statements about, we're calling for a Ramadan ceasefire. We're calling for a 2 months Ramadan ceasefire, as if the stop of fighting in Hodeidah or Taiz, or even Madib, for example, or Al Jawf, or the border, or Hajjah, are going to bring any relief to the people, to 25 million, 28 million people. It doesn't automatically do that, because as European ambassadors have pointed out, it is not the lack of food in the market, it is the lack of money to afford the food in the market. So that means there is no economic activity in Yemen, because there is no employment outside of security and military jobs. That salaries are not paid for civil servants, teachers, ministry employees, etc. So yes, when they just merely announce we're going to have a 2 month ceasefire with no details, it opens up for criticism, because yes, we do want to hear, okay, what are the guarantees to hold the ceasefire? Who's going to observe the ceasefire? There is a front along the Saudi border. There is a front at Hajjah. There is a front at Hodeidah. There is a front in Mocha and southern Taiz, Al Baida, western Shabwa, and all of Madib and Al Jawf. Who's going to observe that there are no breaches to the ceasefire? What does a breach entail? Because we read over the last two days that the Houthis have launched new attacks in Madib. Who's going to observe it? Who's going to condemn it? Who's going to document them? Next, what is happening while there is this two month ceasefire? Are there talks? Houthis are not traveling to Riyadh, so are there talks in Muscat about the next step? The talks in Riyadh will end on the 7th of April. Are the Houthis expected to join the Riyadh talks the last couple of days of the talks, or there will be a process after the Riyadh talks with the Houthis? We don't know. Next, the humanitarian situation. There is no, I just published, you'll see on my Twitter account, I just published an article with quotes from the head of IOM in Yemen, the International Organization for Migration, and they're not hearing anything about money. And they need $150 million this year in order to help migrants and IDPs in Yemen. So the lack of detail around with these statements is what opens them up for criticism and then stops us from being optimistic. It really, the best line that we've heard is we are cautiously optimistic on these talks and cautiously optimistic on the ceasefire. We can't be optimistic because we don't know what the ceasefire entails. We don't know what the plan is. We can't be optimistic about the Riyadh talks because we know that it's just a dialogue between Yemeni factions. Aside from the images that we see from Riyadh with Tariq and Aidarus and Tariq and Hamid or Aidarus and Al-Izzi, Ahmed Al-Izzi, Ben Dagar and Aidarus. Aside from these images, we don't have any information on what's going on. Is the World Bank has just announced millions of dollars for the Yemeni government. Where is that money going?
Well, let me stop you on this because this is really important. They launched a program. It was the European Union actually with the OECD, the Economic Cooperation Organization. They're going to pay $20 million for this project. They want to reactivate some sort of heritage and history projects to activate people, and they're going to spend $20 million. The Tawajjuh al-Badil, the AFY, approached them, the alternative. Thank God that you finally looked at Yemen, and now we need to start working since you are already here. The OECD, we have tried to contact them many times because we need a lot of projects to restructure the actual society database. We don't have any information. We don't know how many people are at the age of what. We don't know how many people are with cancer. We have no database. So there are so many things that we can do with little money. We don't need that much. So when we approached them, I said, can we start a database lab, a Global Pulse lab for Yemen? Then 3 times we contacted them. They don't respond. I don't know. It's crazy. But leaving aside those people, let me ask you back, Fernando, come back to the big questions for us as Yemenis, because we get always drafted into the details. But for us in Al-Tawajjuh al-Badil, the alternative for Yemen, we're not politicians. We are a social solidarity movement. So we really will not get consumed into these little details of, we know what's happening in our country as a social society, a social solidarity movement. We know that we cannot tolerate any supremacy processes or anything that will lead into a supremacist group leading Yemen. So we know our rule that we're not going to be in line with Houthi in any way, shape, or form, and we call him enemy. That's straightforward. We name things by what they are. We know Houthis is a racist group that intends to rule Yemen based on instructions from their claimed God. If this is accepted anywhere in the West, please show me one country in the West, in Europe, in Africa, anywhere now, that will accept someone to come and say, I will rule you people because God has given me a paper and I am in charge of you based on instructions from God. Now, us as Yemeni society living in the 21st century fighting to enter the fourth industrial revolution, having to face this, and the entire West, the civilized West, are just looking at this with blind eye. What is going on? This is really, yeah, go ahead. Give me a view of what is the West looking at us like in Yemen.
Right. Well, I've always said it, and a lot of U.S. officials push back on this, but I've always said it that the U.S. and the European Union have always kept the principle that Yemen is Saudi Arabia's backyard. This is Saudi Arabia's issue to deal with. since 1967. You know, this is 1994, 1990, 1994, 2006, 2011. And so when we had, some of you will remember the group, the Friends of Yemen, back in 2010. In this group, meant to bring in the expertise of Western governments, but still put the burden on the GCC and primarily on Saudi Arabia. So we know that since 1967, we know that since Ali Abdullah Saleh's time in 1978, Saudi Arabia has been the primary financial supporter of Yemen, North Sana'a, financially, on the budget, etc. Every year, there was at least $3 to $5 billion that were injected by Saudi Arabia to stabilize the economy in Yemen. Saudi Arabia has always been the #1 donor to humanitarian projects. This year, in my new article today, I mentioned that the only GCC country to donate money on March 16 to the UN humanitarian response was Kuwait, and with only $10 million. Before 2021, Saudi Arabia would usually pledge $1 billion, $1.5 billion to the UN request. They would basically fund the UN requirement, the UN required by over 50%, along with the Emirates, with another maybe 20%. This year, no. Only Kuwait pledged to donate $10 million. That is huge because the UN asked for $4.3 billion. They got over 30 countries to pledge, not donate yet, but to pledge 1.3 billion out of 4.3 billion requested. It's huge. It's a huge gap. It's a $3 billion gap. Last year, again, it was 1.3 billion out of over 2 billion that they requested. So the big issue here, and why this is centered in Sana'a, and why your question about what does the West want? The West can't deal with Yemen the way Yemenis would like the West to deal, whether it's the European Union, Britain, or the US, because this is Saudi Arabia's backyard. Saudi Arabia is the sub-regional hegemon in the peninsula. They share the longest border with Yemen. You have the relationship with Oman, which has to be balanced by Saudi Arabia. You have the relationship with the Emirates, which has to be balanced by Saudi Arabia. And now you have the introduction of Iran and their own interests, which since the time of the Zaydi Imamate, we've known that Iranian Shia, Persian Shia, because Iran is a new country, but Persian Shia, had wanted to enter Sana'a, and the Zaydi Imams kicked them out. The Iranian regime, the 12er regime, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, has finally found an ally in the Houthis to finally enter Sana'a. And we know that since the time of Pasha, since the time of the Ottoman Empire, even the Ottomans from Egypt considered Yemen the back door to Mecca. That is literally what the Pasha used to say in his writings. That is what Abdel Nasser said in the 50s and 60s. Yemen is the back door to Mecca, and so there's no accident that Iran also considers.
I totally agree with you on this, Fernando. But I mean, you mentioned something so emotional about the history and even the past, and then comes to me because we are in Ramadan, and we are, for me, I'm a Muslim, and I praise what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said. It was once in Himyar, it will go to Quraysh, and then it will come back to Himyar. And when you say that Yemen is the backyard of Saudi Arabia, if I look at my history and my heritage and my country, no, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the entire Arabian countries are the backyard of Yemen. And this is how it should be, and it will be back like that, I promise you. It will be. Hey, the Prophet had said it. I'm a Muslim, and I believe it, and I think it's about time. And this is when we say it's about time. We want to ask the big questions to our neighbors, and that starts with the Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, we have had a history with them. It's almost 100 years of very interesting history, let's say. There's ups and downs in it. They've harmed us. We've harmed them. There's a mess. But in the general aspect of it, they have been our brothers. They have never intended to harm us outside or to sell us to other. Like now, you see, the Iran wants to be in Yemen, not only for, they don't care about Sana'a. Their eye is towards Mecca and towards Saudi Arabia. They want to control the oil in the western side of the Arabic Gulf. This is what they want. This is Iran's strategic plan for the future. And they've said that public. Even Houthis have made that public. So Saudis are our closest ally. And we are their closest ally as Yemenis, because we don't consider, maybe the Houthis as individuals have Yemen citizenship, but their drive, their mindset has nothing to do with the Yemeni society. And we all know that. Yemenis know that, but they are now under siege. And this is, that brings us back to an important issue of this ceasefire. What has you asked this question, what have the people benefited from it? And the second part of our discussion, I want to leave it for Ta'az alone. You tell me what you know about Ta'az, the big victim that has been neglected by all, and now it is still under siege, and there's no signs of relief to the people that live in Ta'az.
Right. Yes. I mean, Ta'az has seen continuous conflict since February 2011, right? I mean, since February 2011, Ta'az has been at the center of the political conflict, of the military conflict. And, you know, I've had very good friends from Ta'az, from Turba, Hujriya, and to see that the conflict continues in that small city, you know, it's definitely heartbreaking. And in this article that I just published, I focused 3 or 4 paragraphs on Ta'az, on the siege of Ta'az. And I blame both Houthi and Islah, because up until November, late 2015, the Houthis and Saleh were bombing, were attacking Ta'az, wanted to control Ta'az, etc. Ta'az is important. Ta'az was important to Ali Abdullah Saleh because this is where he made his military career, right? But Ta'az is one of the most strategic provinces in Yemen because it is the border with the north and the south, and it has a coast on the Red Sea, right? And it's very, geographically speaking, it's very strategic. You can go to, when I visited Turba, they said, you know, in 1994, you could, on a clear day, you could see Aden from Turba, and you can launch small missiles straight into Aden from Turba. So we know why the Houthis want this location. But at the same time, it is unfortunate that since 2016, Islah has worried more about beating their competitors like the Nasris, like the Ishtirakis, like Al-Mu'tamar, inside the city, and not fight the Houthis. So the Houthis are literally up in the mountains of the city of Ta'az, outside the ring road, all the way to the south. They've been 15 kilometers from Turba, from the east of Turba for over a year. And they control Hauban. They control the main road into Ta'az from the east, from Aden, basically, right? And it's been disappointing for me because since 2016 to 2019, I was in the UN panel 2017, 2018, and I met with a lot of people from Ta'az, from all sides, even from Islah, from all sides. And I knew about how the Houthis were blocking the road and taxing the merchandise and the people going on buses or private cars going in and out of Ta'az, but also how Islah were really causing a lot of problems inside. And one thing is for you to want control of the local politics, like the governor, like the city mayors, like the districts. And another thing is to work to obstruct life and economic activity. So first they blamed the Salafis and Al-Qaeda, Ansar al-Sharia inside Al-Qahira area, inside 26 September area, Saila area, for extorting people, for running their own jails, closing schools, everything. But then the Islah started doing the same thing, and in 2 years that they've been in control, 2020, 2021, that they've been in control, relatively fully in control. The Salafis left, the Nazaris left, the commander of the Nazaris was killed. They haven't done anything to improve the situation inside the city. They've not improved the situation for civilians inside the city. They've not improved the humanitarian response, and they've not been fighting the Houthis in order to push them back farther from the city in order for activity, for goods and people to be able to go in and out of Taiz. So one asks, why have Islah not done more? And so hopes that the lifting of the siege in Taiz, also people will remember, is part of the Stockholm Agreement from December 2018. It was one of 3 points from the Stockholm Agreement: the turnover the Hodeidah port, exchange of prisoners, and the lifting of the siege in Taiz by the Houthis. None of those have happened. With this particular ceasefire and proposal, the UN envoy claims that the lifting of the siege ties is part of the ceasefire, but he did not put out a plan. He did not put out a plan on how to do that. And the Houthis are not going to give up their positions around Taiz unless they know who's going to be governing Taiz, and it cannot be Islah. It just, to the Houthis, it cannot be Islah, because we know that historically speaking, Ib and Taiz are a major area for the Muslim Brotherhood, for al-Islah. The business families from Islah come from these areas. And the Houthis are not only looking at the strategic geography of Taiz, but they're looking at the politics, and they don't want Taiz to be a center of gravity for Islah, just like they didn't want Madib to be a center of gravity for Islah. That's why they've been trying to take over the city of Madib for over 2 years. So they want to push Islah out of Madib, out of Taiz, into Atak, Shabwa, or into Sayun. They know they can't push them back into Aden, but they want to keep them out. They want them out of Taiz.
Fernando, that is clear. So let me ask you a very question that is out of the blue. Tell me about Islah. What is Islah? Is Islah Ikhwan Muslimin, or are they a national Yemeni political party?
I mean, as we stand today, Al-Islah is the only cohesive constitutional political party in Yemen. It's the only one. It has an intact hierarchy. It continues to operate in half of the country because obviously they're in jail in Sana'a in the north. But when we look at the political parties, Al-Mu'tamar is fragmented into at least 3 or 4 wings. Everybody, from Sana'a to Riyadh to Abu Dhabi to Cairo to Amman claims to be the Al-Mu'tamar. Al-Ishtiraki, who's the head of Ishtiraki? Who is the constituency of the socialists? Even in the south, you can't point to it. Al-Rashad is a small political party from Al-Bayda.
Fernando, I'm sorry. I want to use your time. Your time is valuable to me. And my questions, when I ask you questions, they are from a social point of view, because we are a social solidarity movement. So when I asked about Islah, I wanted to know his relationship beyond Yemen borders. Is there any? I don't care of his ideology, as long as he is registered within the Yemeni legal system as a party. I accept him. My question to you is direct. Is Al-Islah party connected to organizations outside Yemen? If so, I want proofs of that. And himself will be, in my view, the same as Al-Houthi.
Right.
Because
No, I mean, the short answer.
My problem with Al-Houthi is he has links outside Yemen. If he was a Yemeni grown thing, then I would deal with him in the Yemeni style.
Right. No, I mean, the short answer is yes. I mean, if people want a history lecture on the origins of the Muslim Brotherhood in Yemen, my dissertation was about, my PhD dissertation is about Imam Yahya and the 1948 assassination and the rise of Al-Ikhwan in Yemen with Ahmed Shami, with the Hassan al-Banna, with the Zubaydi, with Abdul Majid al-Zindani, with everyone, right? We can go all the way back to the 1930s in Cairo.
Fernando, I don't want to go back. I want to be here from the day
Today,
that the Saudi government had called Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organization. Now, is our Islah Party since 2011 until now, are they in any connection, in any way, shape, or form, financially, administratively, or even organizationally, with the Islam Brotherhood? If they are, we want proofs of this, and this will make a big difference in our view as a social solidarity movement. Again, we're not speaking as politicians. We are a social solidarity movement. We are concerned by in fixing the setup for the political system to work. We don't want to be politicians, but the table must be leveled for all correctly. So this is the question I'm asking.
Who is Tawakkul Karman's uncle, paternal uncle? Qubati, the murshid of the Muslim Brotherhood in Yemen from Ibn. Her father, the same. Ikhwan members. The Al-Islah is an umbrella, just like the Mu'tamar. You know, they are an umbrella because Yemen has never really had political parties like the Ba'ath Party in Egypt, in Cairo, in Baghdad or Damascus, or the Democratic Party or the Socialist Party in Germany, etc. But the Al-Islah is an umbrella organization that participates in politics. And in order to exist, they had to register as a political party and run in elections since 1993, right? So Al-Islah has Qabilis like Al-Ahmar, Bayt Al-Ahmar, you know, the mashaykhs of Yemen for decades in Hashid. It has businessmen, it has Salafis, and it has Ikhwan as members and as a strategy for politics. So let's remember that Al-Ikhwan is a political entity. It has political goals. Unlike Salafis tend to not engage politics. You know, whether it's Damaj or Taiz style Salafis, they are not pro-democracy. They are pro-shura, pro-consultation, but they are not pro-Western democracy by nature. But the Ikhwan, since Hassan al-Banna, yes, they've accepted political participation in order as an instrument, as a road to political power, you know, in the case of Egypt. Yep.
Go ahead. But my question was, their political goal, is it to, why we have a problem with any ideological strategy is because it leads into concentrating the power in one man's hand.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what is the definition? What is the definition? You know, what is the definition of shura and democracy in the agenda of Al-Islah? In 2011, during the Arab Spring, 2011, I often chewed in Sana'a behind Firqa, behind Al-Iman University with some members of Islah. And just by luck, Satar, the Sheikh Satar, used to go for lunch there, and obviously he doesn't chew, but he would go for lunch and then he would give lectures after that. And he would lecture about government institutions, but he would never lecture about democratic elections. He would never lecture about the benefits of democratic elections, open elections for president, for the parliament, for governors. He would never mention that. His stance by being a member of Al-Islah was that the leader, Wali al-Amr, would be vested with the power to structure the state and maintain state institutions, fund them, build them, put them to work. And up until February 2011, let's remember
the footage that's been shown. We've seen a little bit.
Okay, we will open discussions in a little while. Dr. Muhammad Al-Faqih, we will definitely do that. Fernando, go ahead, finish this point, and there's one more question, and then we will open for discussions.
So Al-Islah, let's remember that before that, even up on February 11, 2011, Zindani, Al-Ansi were in consultation with Ali Abdullah Saleh in order to stop the revolution, to make a deal, to calm, because Islah believed that Ali Abdullah Saleh was Wali al-Amr. He was the leader of the people of Yemen. He was the leader. Whether he came by election or appointment or he stayed by strength, he was the leader of Yemen. So rebellion against the leader, right? Was not allowed.
Bring me now, Fernando, bring me to what can the Islah do now and show, because people now want to ask you questions too. So not the past Islah, I wanted to know whether Islah can be a part of the new scene in your vision in the future.
It needs to be a part of the new scene. Like I said, it's the only constitutional party in Yemen. It should be part of society. It should compete for elections. But if Yemenis decide that democracy is the path forward, if Yemenis decide that democracy is the system that will govern their society, then parties like Al-Islah need to accept diversity of thought, need to accept what the majority of Yemenis want, and at the same time, the majority of Yemenis need to protect the interest of Al-Islah. Remember, democracy is not the majority. Democracy, the rule by the majority. Democracy, since the Greeks, is the protection of the minority. If in democracy you do not have the protection of minority, you do not have democracy. The 51% majority does not have a right to suppress the minority, to dictate to the minority.
Well,
it must be consultation.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But democracy is now the suitable or the tool that we all Yemenis accepted. Not now. We accepted that like in 1962. And we have said this will be our approach from now on. We're not like going away from that. We're not going to drop the revolution of 1962 away. This is the base. Everybody knows that. So democracy is our way. And if Islah wants to be a part of, I think they are. Look, I talked to a lot of Islah members. I was with Shoghi Al-Ghadi. I admire this guy. I respect him. I don't see in their in what they say anything that has to do with against democracy and with any outside Yemen links. I need to find whether there is an over border connection with for Islah with other organizations. This is essential.
Let's just remember, Ustad, a quick note, and this I would love to discuss this with Yemeni academics that know Zaydiyya backwards and forwards, and know Salafiyya backwards and forwards, and know the Ikhwan backwards and forwards. But I wrote an extensive paper way back in 2012 looking at the Zaydi doctrine of the relationship with the leader, the Khuruj, okay?
Yeah.
Comparing it to the concept of Wali al-Amr, of the Sunnah, of the Sunnis.
Okay,
so
then I understand you totally here. Yes, they're both non-valid. I can tell you that now. But let me go to Dr. Muhammad Al-Faqih, and then we will go back to you, Fernando, if you allow me. Go ahead,
Great.
Dr. Muhammad.
Oh, hi. Good evening, and Ramadan Mubarak for everyone. Haqiqa, really, I am happy to hear from Fernando and you and all of you about the situation in Yemen. Really, Fernando gave us a very good idea about our history or about our situation, really. It seems that he should do that in the University of Sana'a or any university. It's not like a political dialogue or something like this one in a Zoom. Zoom need to just give idea about what we can do for the situation now, the crisis now in Yemen. We need solution. We know we as Yemenis, we know every party in Yemen what they have and who with they have a connection. Nasseris, they have connections with us because we are Ummah Wahida. We are one nation. The Arab. We can't say Yemeni is completely no connection with other nations or with any other people. No, especially with the Egyptian people. It's the biggest one in the area in the Middle East, and they are we call Egypt is the Dunya. It's everybody in the Arab should be have a good relation with that people and with that movement in there. Nasseris, Ikhwan, and some other. But Fernando, I am asking you really, what your idea about the solution now? We have only one enemy. He did everything against that democracy. We everybody, as the brother Al-Qaud said, we are Yemeni people accept the democracy way. Even the Islah or Rashad or Mu'tamar or Nasri Shtaraki, everybody in Yemen, just this group of Houthis, they do not accept, not just from 2014, but really since the 26th of September in 1962, they doing something wrong under the table, and they just gumbing to the situation and really damaging everything. It was going right.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. The question is very clear. Fernando, do you want to respond to that?
Brother, I want to say that I am the Vice Prime Minister for the Yemeni shadow government. Thank you.
But I will talk to Fernando about it, but so I don't want to let Fernando respond and talk about himself. Some people don't like to do that, but Dr. Muhammad, Fernando has been doing a lot of lectures, a lot of writings, a lot of articles about Yemen. He's doing his part, and I can say that as a Yemeni, he's doing good.
Please, can you send if you have something?
Of
like
course,
that,
you can follow
any articles. I need it.
You can follow him on Twitter and on Facebook, and he's got the D1 and he's running other sites. But he's been doing a lot on this direction. That doesn't mean we in Tawajjuh al-Badil agree with him 100%. We have a lot of things in common, but we still have also as a social solidarity movement. Again, I need to always emphasize on this. We are a social solidarity movement, not a political party. So we see things from a broader perspective, if you would allow me, Fernando. And this brings us to the actual question as a society. I mean, we, as maybe you've read about Al-Tawajjuh al-Badil, we have our futuristic approach. We're going to have to depend in Yemen on the latest technologies, on the like digital science, on the artificial intelligence processes to like revive the nation, and we're gonna go to that. We're piling people to understand that how important this is. We cannot rebuild our country with the analog system on the like typical way. It's too late now. We can't.
Right.
I'm with you. I am with you. I support that.
I mean, there are so many solutions that have been proposed, that have been put on the table. It's just frustrating that to see that none of them are accepted, none of them are, implemented, none of them. There is no trial and error here. They're just ignored. One of the major proposals to help Yemen and to help the peninsula as a whole is the proposal that is at least 2 to 3 decades old of bringing Yemen into the GCC as a member of the GCC. It does not border the Gulf for sure.
There is no hope about that. Really.
Right, but
Well,
if you find somebody that is willing to take both, number one, many of us have said it, and many Yemenis agree that had King Abdullah lived 1 extra year, we would not have this war, in Saudi Arabia. 2, if Yemen is incorporated into the GCC, fully incorporated, I mean, every issue in the relationship between the monarchies and Yemen can be addressed, but most importantly, the economic integration of the peninsula. You have 25 million people in Yemen, the most populated country in the peninsula.
You are wrong in this point, Fernando. Yemeni people now nearly more than 40 million.
Until I see the census, I'm sticking with under 28.
Exactly. Hey, Fernando, we go back to our point of view. Yes, we even look, us getting into the Gulf states, being a member of the GCC. I mean, to be honest with you, this is not my ambition. This is
But look at this, Ustad.
This
But
is
look
not
at this. Manual labor, technology transfers, security. Okay,
But Fernando,
you don't
Fernando,
need
we're
Bangladeshis.
living now-
You don't need
look,
Bangladeshis and Pakistanis and Indians in the Gulf when you have 20 million people in Yemen that can do technology jobs, that can provide agricultural products, that can provide
Fernando,
fisheries.
Our vision here, it's even beyond the like typical way of progressing. Look, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, the entire peninsula, we should be, the world now is one big city. We should be the industrial city or the industrial zone of the entire world, because we have the energy, we have the desert, we have the sun. We can bring China and its factories into underneath our desert, not over it, but underneath it. We have so much potential if we line up together. But let me tell you, our ambition in the alternative for Yemen is we're not going to wait. We wish that the Gulf rich people would go with us into the future investments. It would be perfect. But in Yemen, we're not going to wait. If they don't come up, it's not our dream to be a part of the JCC. We want to be leaders. We want to follow and be competing with Korea. We want to compete with the new developing fourth industrial revolutionaries. This is what we want, and it is possible. The only thing that is we need to get the people to trust this switch, and then it is possible. Now, what's going on in Saudi Arabia and in the Gulf states is a mess. If the Saudi Arabia, besides all the efforts they've been like changing, Saudi Arabia today is not the Saudi Arabia of yesterday. They have now vision. They have straightforward plans they are implementing, but they need to know that Yemen is not going to be the back garden for anybody. We want to be decent partners, and they will benefit even more if we are real partners other than side followers.
You are right. And just remembering who built the Gulf countries. Ask yourself, Yemeni people who built that one, who spent maybe more than 50 years to build that country and forget, and they just doing everything to destroy our country.
Well,
That's
Dr. Muhammad, let's take it from the positive side. We didn't build their country. Let's take it from the other side. Actually, all these years they have provided us jobs. So they have provided us with chances to work. Don't look at it from one point of view. We
like
have to.
Brother, wallahi. Okay, let's.
I agree. Listen, they have not been the best neighbors that our country can wish for. I can agree with you 100%. We could have been much, much better if Saudi Arabia had from the beginning and dealt correctly with Yemen. I agree with you. But now Saudi Arabia is not the Saudi Arabia of yesterday, and we should try as much and as we can to use this switch that's happening into the favor of creating a better relationship, a more competitive partnership, and being brothers for real. Fernando, we've like wavered aside from you a little bit here, but again, we're back to you, and we're almost finished with this episode. We're going to prepare for next week, and next week episode we would like that to be open, which means you will we will see Fernando's face, and I will also be visible. So we might also invite other research centers or specialists to join us for this conversation.
Sure.
Anything to end up this, Fernando? If you can go to the answer the question, what is the best way forward now in simple terms? Do not take us back to history and the basics. We know you're probably one of the best experts on this modern Yemen history, but let us concentrate on simple steps to the way out and end up this conversation today with this. Go ahead.
It starts with the Yemenis leading, like you said. It starts with a group of Yemenis leading the dialogue, not waiting until somebody else gives them money, gives them a place to have the dialogue. It starts with Yemenis calling all Yemenis, the relevant Yemenis, to a place they choose. They pay. You have millionaires in Europe and in the US that can help fund this, but yet everybody waits until Saudi or the GCC or the UN or the European Union funds a project. If Yemenis do not take full ownership of the dialogue process, you're always vulnerable to somebody else's interest. That's a fact. That's how things work. Nobody gives you something for free. Everybody that gives you something wants something in return.
We don't know anything for free, brother. We don't. No one asked.
They're getting paid. They're getting paid in Riyadh too, like they did in the national dialogue. Sure.
Yes.
So I do things. I do things for free.
You know how long we have seaside?
Exactly. I mean, the economy, the economic resources and the manpower are there.
Yeah.
You have a full coast. You have desert for sun power, electricity, solar power. You have agriculture. You have technology. You have know-how.
Bab al-Mandab we have Aden, we have Sukatra. We have both.
Okay, we wanted to conclude today's episode because 1 hour is our limit for the episode. But yes, I agree with you 100%, Fernando. We have so much potentials if we gather our resources together in the peninsula, us and the rest of the Gulf countries. Believe me, we will lead the planet. But and by the way, with the ongoing Ukraine situation, it shows that now Saudi Arabia is holding in its hand the strongest and the thickest stick on the planet. If we really, as a group, partnership correctly, as you advised, I think there will be big potentials for us. Thank you very much, Fernando, and we will meet again. This is Al-Tawajjuh Al-Badil, and have a nice week.
Thank you very much, Muhammad.